My parents decided my brother should get my house because he has kids, and I don't really need stability. I was standing in my own kitchen when my mother told me I'd be giving my house to my brother. Not selling, not lending, giving. She said it like she was asking me to pass the salt. Like the 3-bedroom craftsman I'd spent 6 years renovating, the mortgage I'd bled myself dry to pay off early, the home I'd built from foundation to future. Like all of it was just something I happened to be holding that someone else needed more. My brother Ethan stood behind her, hands in his pockets, not quite meeting my eyes. His wife Amanda clutched their youngest against her hip, already surveying my living room like she was measuring for curtains. That's when I knew this wasn't a conversation. It was an announcement. "Daniel, you have to understand," my father added, his voice taking that reasonable tone he uses when he's already decided you're being unreasonable. "Ethan has 3 children. They've outgrown that apartment. You're single, you work from home, you could live anywhere." He gestured around my kitchen, the custom cabinets I'd installed myself, the butcher block countertops I'd sanded and sealed over a long weekend, like it was all interchangeable with a studio apartment above a dry cleaner. "This house has 4 bedrooms. It's wasted on one person. Family helps family, son. That's how we've always done things." I remember my hand was wrapped around my coffee mug so tightly, I thought the ceramic might crack. The mug said, "World's okayest brother," a gag gift from Ethan 3 Christmases ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. "You want me to give Ethan my house?" I repeated slowly, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. My mother nodded, her expression softening like she was proud of me for understanding. "Sign it over, yes. He'll take over the property taxes, of course. We wouldn't expect you to pay for a house you're not living in." The casual generosity of it, Ethan would graciously accept the burden of property taxes on a house I'd paid $320,000 for, made something cold settle in my chest. "Where exactly am I supposed to live?" I asked. Amanda spoke for the first time, her voice bright and helpful. "There's a really nice apartment complex near the community college. 1 bedrooms start at $1,400 a month. You'd love it there. There's a gym." She said it like she'd done me a favor by researching it. I'd bought this house when I was 28. I'm 34 now. I bought it as a foreclosure. The previous owners had abandoned it after a fire damaged the kitchen and half the second floor. The bank sold it for $85,000, which was still more than I had. I took out a loan with a 15.3% interest rate because my credit was recovering from student loans and a car accident that insurance fought me on for 8 months. I spent every weekend for 2 years gutting rooms, replacing drywall, rewiring outlets, learning plumbing from instructional videos at 3 in the morning because I couldn't afford to hire professionals. My best friend Owen helped me replace the roof. We nearly died when a ladder slipped and left him dangling from the gutter. I proposed to my ex-girlfriend Claire in the backyard before I'd even finished the deck. She said yes, then left 6 months later because she couldn't see a future with someone who treated a construction project like a relationship. Maybe she was right, but the house stayed. The house was solid. My parents had visited exactly 4 times during the renovation. My mother complained about the dust. My father told me I should have just bought something move-in ready, that sweat equity was a myth perpetuated by home improvement shows. Ethan never visited at all until I'd finished, until the hardwood floors gleamed, and the kitchen had granite countertops, and the bathrooms had heated tiles. Then he visited constantly, always with Amanda, always commenting on how much space I had, how quiet the neighborhood was, how good the school district ratings were. "You're so lucky," Amanda would say, watching their kids run through my backyard. "We're bursting at the seams in our place." I'd smile and offer them drinks, and ignore the way she photographed my light fixtures like she was cataloging inventory. "I'm not giving you my house," I said. The silence that followed was heavy enough to break glass. My mother's face did this thing it always does when I disappoint her, a slight tightening around the eyes, a downturn of her mouth that communicates both hurt and judgment. "Daniel, don't be selfish," she said quietly. "Think about what's best for the family." "I am family," I pointed out. "Exactly," my father said, like I'd proven his point. "Which is why you'll do the right thing. Ethan needs this. You don't. It's simple math." Ethan finally spoke. "Danny, come on. You know we wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. The kids need stability. You can get another house someday when you settle down, when you have your own family. But right now, today, we need this. I need this." His voice cracked on the last word, and I saw Amanda's hand find his shoulder in a gesture of supportive suffering. I looked at the 3 of them, my parents standing side by side like a unified front, Ethan and Amanda behind them like refugees seeking sanctuary, their children quiet and wide-eyed in the living room, probably coached not to touch anything. I thought about my own childhood, growing up in a house where Ethan was the golden child, the one who got into the right college, who married the right girl, who gave our parents grandchildren and holiday photos and a sense of legacy. I was the other one. The weird one who studied graphic design instead of business, who freelanced instead of getting a real job, who bought a destroyed house and lived in construction chaos for years instead of renting something sensible. I was the one who didn't need things, apparently, didn't need stability, didn't need to be considered. "Get out of my house," I said. My voice came out calmer than I expected. My mother gasped like I'd struck her. "Daniel Marcusau!" my father started, using my middle name like I was 12 years old. Get out of my house, I repeated. All of you, now. Amanda pulled their daughter closer, her eyes filling with tears. You're really going to do this? You're going to choose a building over your own nephew and nieces? I'm choosing my home over people who think they're entitled to it, I said. There's a difference. Ethan's face hardened. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by something colder. You'll regret this, Danny. Family doesn't forget. Neither do homeowners, I replied. The door's behind you. They left. My mother cried in the driveway loud enough for the neighbors to hear. My father didn't look at me, just got in the car with the stiff dignity of a man who'd been profoundly insulted. Ethan loaded his family into their minivan, and Amanda stared at me through the passenger window with an expression of pure betrayal, like I'd personally stolen food from her children's mouths. I stood in my doorway and watched them drive away. Then I went inside, locked the door, and sat on my couch in the silence of my own home. My hands were shaking. I didn't know if it was anger or adrenaline or the terrible certainty that I'd just crossed a line my family wouldn't forgive. But I also didn't regret it. Not yet, anyway. That was on a Thursday. By Saturday, my mother had called 6 times, each voicemail a variation of disappointment and concern for my soul. My father sent one text. We raised you better than this. Ethan sent nothing, which worried me more than the guilt trips. I knew my brother. Silence meant strategy. I tried to go back to work. I run a freelance design studio from my home office, mostly branding for small businesses and the occasional website. But I couldn't focus. Every time I heard a car door slam outside, I tensed. Every notification made my stomach drop. I felt like I was waiting for something, though I didn't know what. On Sunday, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Daniel Whitmore? A woman's voice asked. Yes. Who's this? My name is Patricia Grayson. I'm a social worker with County Family Services. I'm calling regarding a wellness check request filed on your behalf. My brain stuttered over the words. A wellness check? I didn't request a wellness check. No, sir. The request was filed by your family members. They've expressed concern about your mental state and living conditions. I'd like to schedule a home visit to ensure everything is all right. She sounded professional, bored even, like this was routine. My mental state is fine. My living conditions are fine. Someone's wasting your time. I understand this may feel intrusive, Mr. Whitmore, but once a report is filed, we're obligated to follow up. I can come by tomorrow afternoon around 3, or we can schedule something later in the week. Your cooperation is appreciated, though I should mention that refusal to comply can complicate matters. I felt something cold pool in my stomach. What kind of matters? Let's just do the home visit, Mr. Whitmore. I'm sure it's nothing. 3 o'clock tomorrow work for you? I looked around my house. It was clean, organized, clearly well-maintained. I had nothing to hide. Fine. 3 o'clock. Thank you. I'll see you then. She hung up before I could ask anything else. I stood there holding my phone, trying to process what had just happened. My family had reported me to social services because I wouldn't give them my house. The pettiness of it was almost impressive. The vindictiveness was terrifying. Patricia Grayson arrived at 2:58 on Monday afternoon. She was in her early 50s, carrying a tablet and a messenger bag, wearing an expression of professional neutrality that gave nothing away. I let her in, offered her coffee, tried to be pleasant. She declined the coffee and began walking through my house with the methodical attention of an inspector. She photographed the kitchen, opened my refrigerator, checked the bathrooms, looked inside closets. You live alone? She asked. Yes. No roommates? No partner? Correct. And you work from home? I'm a graphic designer, freelance. My office is upstairs. She nodded, making notes on her tablet. Your family expressed concern that you might be isolating, that you've been exhibiting signs of depression and possible hoarding behavior. I actually laughed. Hoarding? Have you looked around? This place is immaculate. I have looked around, she agreed, which is why I'm confused about the report. It mentions concerning accumulation of possessions, poor hygiene, refusal to engage with family members. I refused to give them my house, I said flatly. That's what this is about. I said no to something they wanted, so they called you to harass me. Patricia Grayson's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. That's a serious allegation, Mr. Whitmore. It's the truth. My brother wants this house. My parents support him. I declined. 3 days later, you show up because of a wellness check I didn't ask for. She was quiet for a moment, tapping something into her tablet. I'm going to need some information from you. Employment verification, references, perhaps a statement from a medical professional confirming your mental health status. Why would I need to prove I'm sane? I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Because a report was filed, because I have to document my findings, because that's how this works. She met my eyes. For what it's worth, Mr. Whitmore, this does seem like a misuse of county resources. But I still have to file my report. If you can provide documentation that contradicts the claims made against you, it'll help close this case faster. I gave her my accountant's contact information to verify my income. I gave her the name of my doctor and signed a release for my medical records. I gave her Owen's number as a character reference. She took it all down with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "I'll be in touch once I've reviewed everything," she said. "The case will likely be closed within 2 weeks if everything checks out." "And if my family files another report?" I asked. "Then we'd investigate that too," she said. "But repeated false reports can result in consequences for the reporting party. We take fraudulent claims seriously." She left me her card and saw herself out. I stood in my entryway after she'd gone, feeling like the walls of my house had become a trap. The next attack came through work. On Wednesday, I got an email from my biggest client, a regional restaurant chain I'd been designing marketing materials for over the past 8 months. The email was short and brutal. "Daniel, we've received some concerning information about your business practices and reliability. We're going to pause our contract while we review the situation. We'll be in touch." I called immediately. The marketing director, a woman named Leslie Hart, who I'd worked with for months, sounded uncomfortable. "Daniel, someone contacted us claiming to be a former client. They said you missed deadlines, delivered subpar work, and became hostile when confronted. They said you'd done the same to them and wanted to warn us before we got in too deep." "Who told you this?" I demanded. "They didn't give a name, said they wanted to remain anonymous." "Look, I don't necessarily believe it, but I have to protect the company. If you can provide references from other clients, work samples with verified delivery dates, we can probably resolve this quickly." "Leslie, I've never missed a deadline with you. Not once. I've delivered everything early and under budget. You know this is garbage." "I do know that," she agreed, "which is why I'm giving you a chance to fight it instead of just terminating the contract. Get me those references by Friday." I spent the next day gathering emails from satisfied clients, contracts with completion dates, testimonials I'd collected over the years. I sent Leslie a portfolio of evidence so comprehensive it bordered on obsessive. She responded Thursday night. "This is exactly what I needed. Consider the pause lifted. And Daniel, whoever contacted us really had it out for you. Watch your back." I knew who it was. I couldn't prove it, but I knew. The escalation pattern was too deliberate, too coordinated. First the wellness check, now professional sabotage. My family wasn't just angry. They were systematically trying to destroy my stability until giving up my house seemed like the path of least resistance. On Friday, I got a notice in the mail from the City Code Enforcement Office. Someone had filed a complaint about unpermitted construction on my property. The letter demanded documentation proving that all renovation work had been completed with proper permits, or I'd face fines starting at $500 per violation per day. I wanted to scream. I'd pulled permits for everything that required them: the electrical work, the major plumbing, the structural repairs. I had the signed-off inspections in a file box in my office, but some of the cosmetic work, the stuff that didn't legally require permits, I'd done myself. If they wanted to be pedantic about it, they could probably find something to fine me for. I drove to the code enforcement office Monday morning with my box of permits and inspection certificates. The clerk who helped me was sympathetic but firm. "Someone filed a detailed complaint listing 17 alleged violations. We have to investigate each one. You'll need to provide documentation for everything, and we'll need to schedule an inspection to verify current conditions." "Who filed the complaint?" I asked. "Anonymous tip line. We don't track caller information." "Of course not." The inspector came Wednesday. His name was Robert Marshall. He was thorough and humorless, measuring doorways, checking electrical panels, photographing bathroom fixtures. He spent 4 hours in my house, taking notes, asking questions I didn't always know how to answer. "The deck railing here, was this installed by a licensed contractor?" "I installed it myself," I admitted. "According to code?" "I followed the guidelines in the permit I pulled." "Did you have it inspected after completion?" I went quiet. I hadn't. The permit for the deck had been approved for the structure itself, but I'd added the railing later as a safety upgrade and hadn't thought to call for a separate inspection. "That's a violation," he said, noting it down. "The railing will need to be inspected and certified. Until then, you'll need to restrict access to the deck." He found 3 other minor violations: a bathroom exhaust fan that wasn't vented correctly, a handrail in the basement stairs that was an inch too low by current code, and crown molding in the living room that apparently required a permit I'd never known existed. Each violation came with a fine: $250 for the fan, $200 for the handrail, $500 for the unpermitted molding work. I'd have 30 days to correct the violations and provide proof of correction, or the fines would double and continue doubling every 30 days. "This is insane," I said. "These are cosmetic issues. The house is safe. It's up to code in every way that matters." "The code is the code, Mr. Whitmore," Marshall said. "I don't make the rules, I just enforce them." He left me with a citation packet an inch thick. That night, Owen came over with pizza and beer. He'd been my best friend since college, the only person outside my family who'd seen me through the worst of the renovation years. He listened while I unloaded everything: the house demand, the wellness check, the work sabotage, the code violations. He didn't interrupt, just let me talk until I'd run out of words. "So, what are you going to do?" he finally asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to fight every single thing. Document everything, hire a lawyer, make them regret starting this. But part of me is just exhausted. It's like they're trying to drown me in bureaucracy until I give up. They are, Owen said. That's exactly what they're doing. Your brother wants your house, and your parents are helping him wage a war of attrition until you're too tired to keep defending it. I can't just give up my house, I said. This is my home. I built this. Literally built it. I know, Owen said. I was on that roof with you, remember? I almost died for this place. But Danny, you need to think strategically. They're not going to stop. What's the next move after code violations? What else can they attack? I don't know. Think about it. You work from home, so they can't go after your commute or office relationships. You're single, so there's no partner to pressure. But you've got this house, and you've got your business, and you've got your reputation. They've already hit all three. What's left? I felt the cold weight of understanding settle over me. They're going to keep going until something breaks. Yeah, Owen agreed. So you need to decide. Are you willing to see this through to the end? Because it's going to get worse before it gets better, and you need to be ready for that. I spent that night researching harassment laws, looking into restraining orders, reading about family estrangement and legal protections. The internet was full of stories like mine, families who turned toxic over money, property, inheritance. But most of those stories ended in surrender or total estrangement. Nobody had a roadmap for winning. I needed proof. I needed documentation. I needed to turn their strategy against them. The next morning, I went to a security company and had cameras installed around my property. 4 outdoor cameras covering all entrances, 2 indoor cameras in the main living areas. If anyone showed up to harass me, to plant evidence, to do anything that could escalate their campaign, I'd have it recorded. I also called my lawyer, a woman named Diana Foster, who'd helped me with the house purchase and some contract negotiations over the years. I explained the situation. She listened with the clinical attention of someone who'd seen worse. This is targeted harassment, she said when I finished. But proving it in a way that has legal teeth is tricky. Your family hasn't directly threatened you, they've just weaponized systems against you. The wellness check, the work complaints, the code violations. Individually, they could all be coincidence. But together, I pressed. Together it's a pattern, but patterns require documentation. You need to create a timeline. Every incident, every communication, every interaction. Dates, times, witnesses, if possible. Build a case file like you're the prosecutor. If this escalates to the point where you need a restraining order or want to pursue a harassment claim, you'll need overwhelming evidence. What about the house itself? I asked. Can they legally force me to give it up? Not unless you sign something or they can prove you're unfit to own property, which is nearly impossible for a mentally competent adult. But they can make your life hell until keeping it feels harder than letting it go. That's the game they're playing. So what do I do? Document everything. Don't engage with them directly. Let all communication go through me if possible, and prepare for this to get uglier before it resolves. She was right about the ugly part. The following week, I got a letter from a lawyer representing Ethan and Amanda. The letter claimed that during my renovation of the house, I'd damaged shared utility lines that affected neighboring properties, and that I was liable for repairs totaling $18,000. It cited complaints from 2 neighbors I barely knew, included engineer reports I'd never seen, and demanded payment within 60 days or they'd file a civil suit. I called Diana immediately. She reviewed the letter and made a disgusted sound. This is completely fabricated. These engineer reports aren't from licensed engineers, and the complaints from neighbors are suspiciously generic. This is intimidation. Can they actually sue me? They can file suit, yes. Whether they'd win is another question. But defending yourself costs money and time. That's the point. Not to win, but to drain you. So what's my move? We respond with our own letter pointing out the deficiencies in their claim and threatening a countersuit for harassment. We call their bluff. But Daniel, you need to prepare yourself financially and emotionally. This could go on for months. I'd been careful with money my whole adult life. I had savings, I had a paid-off house, I had steady work. But legal fees were mounting. The code violation corrections cost $3,000 to complete properly. Diana's retainer was $5,000. The security cameras were another $1,500. I was hemorrhaging money defending something that should never have needed defending. My stress levels were affecting my work. I'd started missing small details in projects, getting snappy with clients, staying up until 3 a.m. because I couldn't shut my brain off. I'd lost 12 pounds in a month. I looked gaunt in the mirror, older than I should. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Saturday, almost midnight. I was in bed, finally drifting off to sleep after hours of staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You should have just said yes. My heart rate spiked. I sat up, staring at the message. A second text came through. This could have been easy. Now you're going to lose everything anyway. I screenshot both messages and forwarded them to Diana. Then I got out of bed and checked my security cameras. Nothing unusual outside. All the doors were locked. But the texts felt like a threat, like someone was watching, waiting. I couldn't go back to sleep. I sat in my living room with the lights on, watching the camera feeds on my phone, jumping at every small sound. At 2:15 in the morning, a car drove slowly past my house. It circled the block twice, headlights off. I couldn't see the make or model clearly, but my stomach dropped with certainty. They were escalating. Sunday morning, I went to the police. I brought my timeline, the threatening texts, the documentation of every incident. The officer who took my report was patient, but ultimately unhelpful. "Mr. Whitmore, I understand you're going through a family conflict, but nothing here constitutes a crime we can act on. The texts are vague, the drive-by could be anyone, and the wellness check and code violations are civil matters. What about harassment? Stalking? You'd need a clear pattern of threatening behavior directed at you personally. What you have is circumstantial. My advice? Change your number, keep documenting, and if anything escalates to direct threats or trespassing, call us immediately." I left the police station feeling more alone than I had in years. The system was designed to react to violence, not to prevent it. I was on my own. Monday brought a new horror. I got an email from my homeowner's insurance company informing me that my policy was being reviewed due to irregularities in the property's renovation history and questions about proper permitting. They were suspending coverage pending investigation. If the investigation found that I'd misrepresented the property's condition or completed unpermitted work, they could retroactively void my policy and demand repayment of any previous claims. I'd filed exactly one claim in 6 years, a minor water damage incident from a burst pipe in year 2. They'd paid out $3,200, but the implication was clear. If they voided the policy, I'd owe that money back. Plus, I'd be without insurance on a house I couldn't afford to replace if something catastrophic happened. I called the insurance company. The representative was apologetic, but firm. "We received a complaint alleging that your home was purchased as a foreclosure with fire damage and substantially renovated without proper disclosure or permitting. If those allegations are true, it affects our risk assessment." Who filed the complaint? It was anonymous, but included detailed information about the property's history. Of course it did. I explained that all major work had been permitted, that I had inspection certificates, that I'd disclosed everything when I'd purchased the policy. The representative took notes, but made no promises. "We'll investigate and be in touch. In the meantime, your coverage is suspended." "What am I supposed to do if there's a fire or flood?" I asked. "You might want to seek temporary coverage through a high-risk insurer," she suggested, "though that will be significantly more expensive." High-risk insurance for my house cost 4 times what I'd been paying. I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford to be without coverage either. I was trapped between financial ruin and gambling with everything I owned. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with every document spread out in front of me. Permits, inspection certificates, legal letters, police reports, screenshots of threatening texts, security camera footage, the timeline Diana had told me to keep. I was looking at thousands of dollars in costs, months of harassment, systematic attacks on every aspect of my life. And for what? Because I wouldn't give up my home. Because I'd said no to people who thought family meant ownership of each other's lives. I thought about surrendering. I thought about calling Ethan and saying, "Fine, you win. Take the house." Would it stop then? Would they be satisfied? Or would they just see it as confirmation that pressure works, that I could be broken down whenever they wanted something else? I picked up my phone and called Owen. "I need help," I said when he answered. "What kind of help?" "The kind where we turn this around. I'm done being defensive. I need to go on offense." There was a pause. Then, "Tell me what you need." Over the next week, Owen and I built a case file that would have made a prosecutor jealous. We organized every piece of evidence chronologically. We created a spreadsheet linking each incident to its impact, financial costs, time costs, emotional toll. We documented every communication from my family, every anonymous complaint, every suspicious coincidence. We pulled property records showing that Ethan and Amanda had sold their previous home 10 months ago and were now renting month to month, suggesting they'd been planning this move for a while. We found social media posts from Amanda from 8 months back talking about manifesting our dream home and believing in family blessings. The timeline was damning. Diana reviewed everything with the cold assessment of a battlefield general. "This is good," she said. "This shows premeditation and coordinated harassment. But we need something that connects your family directly to the anonymous complaints. Right now, it's all circumstantial." "How do we get that?" I asked. "We force them to make a mistake," she said. "We create an opportunity for them to reveal themselves." She drafted a letter that we sent to my parents and to Ethan through certified mail. The letter outlined every incident, noted the pattern, and informed them that all further harassment would be documented and used in legal proceedings. It requested they cease all contact and refrain from filing any further complaints or engaging in any actions that could be construed as harassment. It was professional, legally precise, and completely unambiguous. We were drawing a line. The response came faster than I expected. 2 days after the letters were delivered, my mother called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, her voice shaking with either tears or rage. I couldn't tell which. "Daniel, how could you send us something like that? We're your family. We're trying to help you, and you're treating us like criminals. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. Ethan is devastated. You're tearing this family apart over a house. A house, Daniel. Do you understand how selfish that is? Call me back. We need to talk about this like adults." I saved the voicemail and sent it to Diana. She listened and sighed. She's trying to manipulate you into dropping your guard. Don't respond. Let the letter do its work. 3 days later, Ethan showed up at my door. I saw him on the security camera before he knocked, standing on my porch, hands in his pockets, looking around like he was casing the place. I didn't open the door. "Danny, I know you're home," he called. "We need to talk. Just 5 minutes, brother to brother." I stood on the other side of the door, silent. "Danny, come on. This is ridiculous. Open the door." More silence. I watched through the camera feed as his frustration mounted. His jaw tightened, his shoulders tensed. "You know what?" he said, his voice rising. "Fine. Keep hiding. Keep playing the victim. But you're going to lose everything. And when you do, don't come crying to us. You had a chance to do the right thing. You chose this." He kicked my porch railing, the same railing that had been cited for code violations, and stormed back to his car. The whole interaction was captured in high-definition video with clear audio. Diana watched it and smiled grimly. "That's a threat, and it's evidence of temperament. Save that file somewhere safe." The next week, I got a call from Patricia Grayson, the social worker. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm calling to inform you that your case has been officially closed. All documentation you provided checked out, and my investigation found no evidence supporting the original complaint. I've noted in my report that this appears to have been a false report filed in bad faith." "Can you tell me who filed it?" I asked, though I already knew. "I can't disclose that information, but I can tell you that we've sent a warning letter to the reporting party about misuse of county resources. If they file again, there will be consequences." It was a small victory, but it felt huge. One attack vector closed. One piece of proof that I wasn't crazy, that this was real. I thanked her and hung up, then immediately texted Diana. "Social services cleared me. Case closed. They warned the reporting party." Her response: "Excellent. That's admissible if we need it." The insurance investigation took longer, but eventually I received a letter stating that they'd found no evidence of misrepresentation and my policy would be reinstated. The anonymous complaint had been determined to lack credibility. Another victory. Another crack in their strategy. The code violations were corrected and signed off. The work sabotage hadn't stuck because I had too much proof of my competence. One by one, their attacks were failing, but they weren't stopping. In late October, I got a notice that my mortgage, which I'd paid off 2 years ago, was allegedly in default. The letter came from a debt collection agency claiming I owed $83,000 in unpaid principal and interest. It was completely fraudulent. I'd never refinanced, never taken out a second mortgage. I had the satisfaction of mortgage paperwork proving the house was free and clear, but someone had somehow created a fake lien. Diana took one look at the collection notice and made a phone call. Within 2 days, she'd tracked the fake lien to a filing company that had submitted fraudulent paperwork to the county clerk's office. The county had recorded it without verifying because it looked legitimate on paper. "This is a crime," Diana said. "This is actual fraud. We're filing a police report and going after whoever did this." The police investigation moved slowly, but the detective assigned to the case, a 23-year veteran named Lieutenant Frank Morrison, no wait, Frank Hastings, took it seriously. "Fraudulent lien filings are on the rise," he told me. "Usually it's scammers targeting elderly homeowners. But in your case, given the context you've provided, this looks personal." "It's my family," I said. "I know I can't prove it yet, but it's them." "Then let's prove it," Hastings said. The investigation took 3 weeks. During that time, I lived in a state of sustained anxiety, waiting for the next attack, sleeping badly, eating worse. Owen practically moved in, refusing to let me isolate. He brought groceries, forced me to take walks, made me laugh when all I wanted to do was rage. "They're trying to break you," he said. "Don't let them. You're stronger than this." I wasn't sure I believed him, but I tried. In mid-November, Lieutenant Hastings called. "Mr. Whitmore, we've traced the fraudulent lien filing. It was submitted by a paralegal service that your brother's attorney uses. The paralegal claims they were given information by a client and filed in good faith, but the information they were given was completely fabricated. We're pursuing charges." "Against who?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Still investigating, but we've got enough to bring your brother in for questioning. Would you be willing to testify if this goes to trial?" "Absolutely." 2 days later, Ethan was arrested for filing a fraudulent lien. Amanda posted bail within hours, and by evening my mother was calling again, this time screaming, "You had your own brother arrested. What is wrong with you? He made a mistake, Daniel, a mistake, and you're treating him like a criminal." "He committed a crime, Mom," I said, my voice flat. "He filed fake documents to try to steal my house. That's fraud. That's not a mistake. He was trying to secure a future for his children. You're single. You don't understand what it's like to have people depending on you." "I understand that trying to steal someone's property to benefit your kids is still theft," I said. "And I understand that you've been helping him this whole time. The wellness check, the code complaints, the insurance fraud. You think I don't know?" The line went quiet for a long moment. Then, "You can't prove any of that." "Actually, I can. I've been documenting everything. Every incident, every timeline, every suspicious coincidence. And when this goes to trial, All of it's going to come out. You'd really do that? She asked, and for the first time, I heard something other than anger in her voice. Fear. You'd drag your own family through court? You dragged me through hell for months because I wouldn't give up my home, I said. You made that choice, Mom. Not me. I'm just finishing what you started. I hung up. My hands were shaking again, but this time it felt different. Not fear, not anxiety. Anger, yes, but also something like power. I wasn't helpless anymore. I had proof. I had allies. I had the truth on my side. The case against Ethan moved forward. His lawyer tried to argue that it was a clerical error, that Ethan had believed there was a legitimate debt and was trying to collect it. But the evidence was too clear. The fake lien had been created from whole cloth, using fabricated account numbers and forged signatures. There was no debt. There never had been, and Ethan had known it. In December, facing overwhelming evidence and the possibility of serious prison time, Ethan took a plea deal. He pled guilty to fraud and agreed to 3 years probation, community service, and restitution for my legal costs. He also had to sign a statement admitting that he'd attempted to fraudulently claim ownership of my property. The statement was part of the public record. His name, his crime, his admission, all of it documented forever. But the real victory came during the investigation. When the police dug into the paralegal services records, they found email chains. Emails from Amanda to the paralegal. Emails from my mother to Ethan planning strategies. Texts between my father and Ethan discussing which code violations to report. It was all there, a written record of conspiracy, of coordinated attacks, of a family weaponizing systems against one of their own. Diana filed a civil suit for harassment, emotional distress, and the costs associated with defending against their campaign. The evidence was so overwhelming that my parents' lawyer recommended they settle rather than go to trial. In January, 6 months after my mother had stood in my kitchen and told me to give my brother my house, I sat across a conference table from my parents and their attorney and watched them sign a settlement agreement. They'd pay $75,000 to cover my legal fees, lost wages, and documented damages. They'd sign a binding agreement to cease all contact with me and to refrain from any further harassment. They'd publicly retract the false complaints they'd filed. My father looked 10 years older. My mother cried quietly into a tissue. Neither of them would look at me. Their attorney slid the signed papers across the table with the weary expression of someone who'd seen too many ugly family fights. It's done, Diana said to me as we left the building. They can't touch you now. You won. The house is yours, free and clear, and they're legally bound to leave you alone. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired and sad and strangely empty. That night, I sat in my living room, the room I'd rebuilt from charred studs, the room I'd defended at the cost of my family, my peace, and 6 months of my life. Owen was there, drinking beer and not saying much, just being present. You okay? He finally asked. I don't know, I admitted. I won, but I lost them, my whole family, for a house. For your home, Owen corrected. For your right to keep what you built. For your dignity. That's not nothing, Danny. It feels like nothing right now. It won't always, he said. Give it time. You stood up for yourself. You didn't let them break you. That matters. Maybe he was right. Maybe one day I'd feel proud instead of hollow. But that night, all I felt was the weight of everything I'd lost in order to keep everything I'd built. The house was quiet around me, solid and safe and mine. Only mine. And I couldn't tell if that was victory or just a different kind of defeat. 3 months later, I'm still here. Still in my house, still rebuilding my life from the wreckage. I changed my phone number. I blocked my family on every platform. I haven't heard from them since the settlement, and I don't expect to. Ethan's working some construction job now, trying to pay off his legal debts. Amanda left him, took the kids to her mother's place in another state. My parents moved to Florida, escaping the shame or maybe just escaping me. I don't know, and I'm trying not to care. The house itself has become both sanctuary and monument. I finished the few projects I'd left undone, replaced the deck railing with something bulletproof, added a proper fence, planted a garden that's slowly coming to life. Owen still comes over most weekends. We cook, we watch movies. We don't talk about what happened unless I bring it up first. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I wish I'd just given them the house and avoided the whole nightmare. The answer is no, but it's complicated. I regret that my family turned out to be the kind of people who'd do what they did. I regret losing relationships I thought were solid. I regret the months of fear and anger and fighting. But I don't regret keeping what was mine. I don't regret standing my ground. This house was never just a building to them. It was a test. They wanted to see if I'd surrender my boundaries, my autonomy, my sense of self, to keep the peace. They wanted to know if family obligation trumped personal dignity. I gave them an answer. They didn't like it, but that's not my problem anymore. I learned something through all of this that I wish I'd understood earlier. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you will hurt you worse than strangers ever could. They'll use your history against you, weaponize your loyalty, exploit your desire to be good and kind and accommodating. And when you finally say no, when you finally draw a line and defend it, they'll call you selfish. They'll call you ungrateful. They'll call you the one tearing the family apart, as if families can't be torn apart by the people who demand too much and give too little. I'm not the villain in this story, no matter how they tell it to themselves. I'm just the person who refused to set himself on fire to keep other people warm. That's not villainy. That's survival. The house is quiet tonight. No threatening texts, no code enforcement notices, no fake liens or fraudulent complaints. Just the sound of the heater kicking on and the distant hum of traffic. I'm sitting in my kitchen, the kitchen I rebuilt with my own hands, drinking coffee from that old world's okayest brother mug. The irony still isn't lost on me, but it stings less now. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd said yes that first day, if I'd just nodded and smiled and started packing. Would Ethan be happy here? Would my parents be proud? Would the kids be running through these rooms, filling them with noise and life? Maybe. But they wouldn't be my rooms anymore. They wouldn't be my life. And I've spent too many years building this place, building myself, to hand it over because someone else decided they deserved it more. I deserve stability too. I deserve a home. I deserve to say no without my world burning down around me. It took losing my family to learn that. It took 6 months of systematic harassment and legal warfare to claim what should have been mine without question. But I learned it. I claimed it. And I'm still here. The house stands. I stand with it. And that, in the end, is enough. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.